What is virtual super resolution? That is the question that actually started my journey into learning about AMD's intricate software. Because this is a question that I asked more than 3 years ago. These experiments that I ran were so long ago that it feels like I should have gotten to this sooner, but other features were more important. Things like RSR, FSR, anti-lag, all those things actually came later than virtual super resolution, which was the OG to this entire series, the concept that I never posted. Today that changes. We're gonna actually talk about virtual super resolution, what makes it different than Radeon Super Resolution, and why it's actually a pretty interesting feature and when to use it. So let's get right into it. Hello and welcome. My name is Wolfie and you are watching GreaterThanPie. So what is virtual super resolution? Well, virtual super resolution allows you to run a resolution higher than what your display can display. For example, if you have a 1080p monitor, you can run 1440p, which will then be downsampled back to 1080p. Now you might be thinking, why in the world would you do that? Well, there are a couple of use cases for this. You can actually up resolution the 1080p monitor using virtual super resolution instead of downsampling the 1440p monitor so that you end up with a similar border to screen ratio and will have a more seamless connection. Interestingly enough though, this does yield some mixed results. For example, when doing this, you'll notice that text will generally be fuzzier, and this seems to be something that scales with the resolution. And with the Steam Deck, I noticed that this seems to be just evidence of something downsampling a resolution. The Steam Deck runs somewhere around 720p. It's actually 800p technically. And if you stream a game at 1440p to that 800p screen, the text is not really that legible. And yeah, that is something that I think Valve themselves can work on a little bit on the software side. The point is, text becoming less legible and blurry is common in this kind of setup. But you may notice something odd. The resolution doesn't look bad on non-text or non-pixel dependent items. Why? Why does this look sharper than normal? Well, there are a couple of reasons for this. One of them is that your monitor itself actually interprets the data that is sent to it. And when a 1080p image is sent, it interprets that across its entire canvas. There is a thing called pixel binning, which cameras sometimes use, where they have the best absolute pixels render a specific image. And it sometimes is a way to get an image that looks sharper than it really is. And monitors can kind of do something similar. When they're presented with a higher resolution image, that resolution image is just squished down and displayed on the screen. And it does its best to represent as many pixels as it can. This also can result in a more gradual transition in pixels than would normally be displayed in the game itself or application. This is where text gets affected because the text is usually going to be a couple pixels wide, and when it gets smooshed together, it blurs everything ever so slightly. And while it isn't a perfect recreation of a 1440p image, it might look closer to a 1440p image than a 1080p image. Even weirder so, this varies from monitor to monitor, screen to screen. On something like my Asus monitor, which I have back there, I can actually run a resolution over the resolution that is on the box. It is a 1440p monitor, but it can run close to 3K out of the box without any modifications or overclocks. And I think that's it because this is a good panel and Asus knows that it can do that. In fact, actually that monitor also has overclocking. You can overclock past the refresh rate. The point is that this monitor can accept signals up to 4K without us even enabling virtual super resolution. And more importantly, when using virtual super resolution, it doesn't look bad. It almost looks like it has extra pixels to work with, which is probably what's going on in this case. And in the case adjacent to this one, which is my TV. You see, my TV is the 1080p panel, but there are sharpening filters and things that happen with the TV that make it look not 1080p. I suspect that there are probably more pixels than a traditional 1080p image, and they use this sharpening to make it look higher resolution or ultra HD. Those are all just random circumstances that can lead to a better image. On the flip side, I have a BenQ monitor that if you plug in and use virtual super resolution, looks like hot garbage.
Wolfie editing this video right now. There is another use case where this can become a problem. In fact, actually, it's this use case right here, which is why I had to jump in and kind of talk about it. So when editing something in Premiere, having virtual super resolution makes these like waveforms look blurry, some of this text look blurry. If you are the kind of person who needs to edit video, virtual super resolution probably is not something that you'd want on by default. That being said, you can actually adjust it on a game by game basis by just turning it on. Like just by having it on like this, if a game runs in full screen, you can just change the resolution per game. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in there.
So in some cases, you will benefit, and in others, it will hinder it. And the best part is, all you really have to do is test it. And to test it is really easy. All you need to do is go into your AMD software, go to your display settings, and then click on the display that you want to enable it for. From there, you just enable, and inside Windows, you can now set it to whatever resolution you want. Keep in mind though, if you are running a high refresh rate monitor and you're trying to run at 4K, you can't run at 4K and high refresh rates if you're running off of HDMI. DisplayPort can do it. So then what are the downsides to doing this? Well, for one, you're gonna make everything harder to run. I did do a weird experiment where I ran virtual super resolution and RSR, Radeon Super Resolution, together, which you can't do by default. I had to go through some really back-end ways to do it. But it ended up just making everything harder to run and not looking that great. It did look better than native, but at the same time, it's not worth doing it that way. If you're gonna use RSR, use RSR. If you're gonna use FSR, use FSR. And if you're gonna use VSR, use VSR. That sounded real confusing. Also, the difference between Radeon Super Resolution and Virtual Super Resolution is running at a higher image and shrinking it down to a smaller image, and Radeon Super Resolution is taking a smaller image and blowing it up to a larger image. FSR also does the same thing, so does DLSS on NVIDIA side, and there is a NVIDIA equivalent which is called Custom Resolution, which allows you to do the same thing. Overall, Virtual Super Resolution is a simple to use tool that really only has a few uses, which is probably why most people haven't used it. But if you've ever found yourself annoyed by the fact that your desktops don't align properly, or really wanted to see if maybe your panel has just a little bit more power underneath the hood, go ahead, turn it on, try it. You might be surprised. I have found that most gaming monitors have a little bit of extra performance under the hood. But that's where we're gonna end today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, consider giving it a like, maybe commenting, subscribing. I am actually genuinely interested if anybody's got more hard information about panel types, because, well, this is just an observation. I don't have the ability to literally microscope in and like count the pixels and the subpixels. I noticed a while ago that there was a trend in the industry that sort of made these like sharpened monitors, if you will, or these sharpened screens. And I don't know, it's super weird. I've been noticing it myself across LG, Roku, but I've been noticing some weird trends when it comes to resolution and screens. And let me know if you've been noticing them too. But that's what we're gonna end today. Thank you so much for watching. Wolfie, out.